Welcome to WP-Tonic, Episode 11, with your co-hosts, Jonathan Denwood, and yours truly, Bill Conrad. Today's episode is about the speed of your website, how fast it regenerates. A very important issue. People will not stay on your website if it does not regenerate fast. A couple admin notes. You'll notice that we should have had this out last month early before our WordPress meetup. We're going to have another episode up in a few days on the 1st, and that episode's going to be about security. And if you're in the Reno area on the 6th of November, stop by the Reno Collective at 6 p.m., and we're going to go into more detail on security at our WordPress meetup. And finally, on the 4th Saturday of the month at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, we're going to have a Google Hangout. Attending will be the WordPress organizers across the country, and we're going to go into more detail about security. So without further ado, we need to get into this episode and talk about the need for speed on your WordPress site. Jonathan, welcome to WP-Tonic, our show. We're back. I took about a month off to go take a trip, do some backpacking, and did 9 interviews down in Southern California for Timelines. This is going to be a good show today.
I think it's going to be.
Great show. And it's a prelude. If you want to see us, and if you're in town, we have a WordPress meetup on Tuesday, 9 October at 6 p.m. at the Reno Collective. You can just Google the Reno Collective and find us. Love to have you stop by and say hi. Also, this is going to be the prelude. What we're going to talk about is the importance of speed of the website.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's great to be back. We got a couple shows that are going to go on in the near future, but this is going to be a great show, I think, Bill.
Even while I was gone, though, we had some pretty good listener numbers on the listeners. So thank you out there for those listeners too.
Yeah, I think it's building up, isn't it, Bill?
Yep, it is. It is.
So Google have made it really quite clear that page loading and website speed are really important to Google, and what's important to Google is important to website owners. They've got their own tool which they provide for free, which will tell you how Google rates your website when it comes to mobile and desktop. And in truth, WordPress in the web design development professional community has got a bit of a reputation of can be a bit slow, but I think that's unjustified, and I think that's down to a lot of factors. But we're gonna go through about 7 to 8 major factors.
And Jonathan did an amazing job on the notes that he sent over to me.
Oh, thanks, Bill.
So I will read the bullets, and I'll let you go into detail.
Yeah, that'd be great, Bill.
Also, before we start, I just want to pitch your latest project, which is mail-right.com. You want to see a good web page, a fast web page. I've watched Jonathan really accelerate this web page, so It's a beautiful web page.
Oh, thanks, Bill.
So going right into them, I think, like you said, there are about 7, and there are no specific order that you have to apply those. You can apply them in any order, but you should do them all, right?
I think you need to look at all of these, and there's more, but I've just started with the major 7.
So I've learned one thing. The very first one is if you have a deactivated plugin, remove it.
Yes, because even though you got it deactivated, it will load into the header. The header, your web page is divided into sections when it comes to WordPress, and a lot of the initial data is uploaded in the header section of WordPress, and you might have the plugin deactivated in the desktop, but data will still be loaded into the header, and that can slow the website down, especially if it's not a well-coded plugin. So deactivating it doesn't mean it's not loading into your header area.
The other thing I found out, which we were talking before the show, is the security risk is also still there on the deactivated site.
Yes, you've got to keep them updated, which can be a pain. It's just best, if you're not really going to use it, is to get rid of it.
Yeah, very good. Real simple thing to do, like you just said. So here's the tough one. Number 2 is clean up your database.
Yeah, basically, really, this is the why you need two sites, a staging site and a live site if you can. If it's really important, it's best to have two sites. And when you're trying out new stuff, try it out on the staging site and keep your live site to stuff that you're really going to use, or things you're trying out you're going to really implement on the live site. Because if you keep changing things, your database kind of fills up with crud over a period of time, and this can slow down your website. So there's a number of tools, but before I mention the tools, please, if you haven't got a staging site and you're going to utilize these tools on your live site, please have a proper backup. Don't utilize these three tools that I'm going to talk about if you haven't got a proper backup of your database, of your whole website, because these tools can take down your whole site, right? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say there's three that you have here: WP-Optimizer, Disabler, and WP-DB Manager.
Yes, Disabler kind of just disables things that WordPress offers that load up in your header area, which most people don't utilize, and it gives you an option screen where you can choose things which you normally don't have an option to turn off, that most people don't really use.
So do you need all three of these or just one or two of them?
Just WP Optimizer and WP DP Manager do the same thing. So utilize either of those, and Disabler does something a bit different. So I would use WP Optimizer and Disabler together. But like I said, don't utilize any of these unless you've got a total backup of your website.
Right. We've learned that before you even put any plugin in, you should back it up, correct?
Yeah, you probably are right. Yeah. If it's a live site and you're making money, but you should have if it's like that, it's a real business and you're making money from the website, you should have a staging site anyway, I feel.
Yeah, right? I do that. Of course, I've got a lot of sites and I play with different combinations.
Yeah.
So number 3 is use a cache plugin. Now this scares me. Cache plugins.
Yeah, it does. And I'm not too keen, or wasn't, but they do have a place. They will make a big difference to a website. And the two most popular are W3 Total Cache and Super Cache. I haven't got any practical experience with Super Cache, but I have used W3 Total Cache. It comes in a free version or a Premier version. It is a very complicated multi-panel option caching plugin, and it is pretty complicated, and you can, if you set it up incorrectly, make things worse rather than better. I don't no longer use WP Total Cache. I was introduced to a free caching plugin that also has a Premier, but at a very reasonable price. The Premier version is only $15, and you can use it on multiple websites, I think. And it's called Quick Cache, and I've used it on WP-Tonic and a couple of other client websites, and it's a much easier to use interface, and just seems to be a much easier caching plugin.
Very good. So Quick Cache. I'm going to be very careful with caches on my sites. Now, I got a question on cache. When you have a blog, how does the cache affect the blog site?
Can you be a bit more precise, Bill?
I've always heard that if you have more of a static page, a page that's already built in place, that it's okay to use a cache. In fact, it helps it. But if you're a dynamic page where you're adding to it like a blog, adding material, adding pages maybe, or modifying it, that the cache can affect the page.
There's an element of truth to that, but it just depends on the caching plugin you're utilizing. I think if you use Quick Cache, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. It's a much easier animal. And there's all different types of caching. There's server caching, browser caching.
Right.
There's about 4 to 5 different types of caching.
Well, I didn't know that. I know I always thought it was the browser is where the cache goes on the
No,
person's
actually,
computer.
it's much more complicated. I'm not going to delve into because that would take up about half hour in its
Well,
own. So
WP Total Cache, I think, is probably one of the better known caches.
yeah, and I've got nothing against it. I think if you've got a big site, look at it. But I'm going to stay with Quick Cache. I've been really happy with it.
Okay, very good. So number 4 is good quality hosting.
And it does make a big difference. You can do all the other things I'm talking about, but if you haven't got good hosting, it'll make a bit of a difference, but not. You're still going to have problems.
Right. Some of the well-known ones, of course, are Bluehost and HostGator.
Yeah, they're great, but it's cheap. It's cheap. You're going to be on a server that there could be hundreds, thousands of websites on it. And you get, and to some extent, not always, but to some extent, you get what you pay for.
Right, right. The low-end Bluehost and BlueGator can be very slow. I have an upgraded Bluehost account, which it works pretty fast, as you know, and it's a little more expensive than probably maybe some of these specialized WordPress hosting sites.
Yeah, and then you got the specialized, people that specialize in. You got like Flywheel. They've got a really good reputation, and they will transfer the site from the existing host onto their area free of charge. You got Pagely that have been in the market for the past 3 to 4 years, got a very good reputation, and then you got WP Engine, who also got a very good reputation, and I've got nothing against them, but they are, WP Engine are pretty expensive for what. They're
very expensive, but they're very good.
Yeah. There's been some comments on the WordPress community that the support you get from WP Engine for the price you're paying is a little bit disappointing. But they are a very reputable company.
Right.
And, you can have your ups and downs with all hosting providers.
Right.
But but the one I think for what you have to pay, and I've gone now to utilize them totally for my own and for most of my clients, and I've utilizing one of their upper shared hosting, but a kind of hybrid upper version is a company called SiteGround, and their technical support for the price you pay, I've just been so happy with them.
What's it going to cost our listener to use SiteGround?
Well, they do a high version. It's shared hosting, but it's a higher kind, and it's using solid state drives on the shared server. A solid state drive is much more on there. Yeah, and they offer a lot of extras. They offer staging facility, and you have to pay up front, but they're doing it for about $15 a month.
That's not bad. It adds up.
You go and look at it. It's for the same specification. You got to pay almost $100 a month with WP Engine.
Right, and I pay about $260 for my Bluehost upgrade site with IP address.
Yeah.
So I have my own IP address, and it seems to work pretty well. It's not, if you go a lower end Bluehost site, it really bogs down.
Yeah, it's got a reputation if you go for their cheaper.
Yeah, you can't go cheap.
The Bluehost cheap.
Unless it's a hobby site and you're just learning.
Yeah, it doesn't matter then, really.
And that's how to start, by the way. I think do a hobby site, $5-6 a month, and just play around with WordPress.
But this idea that you can just go for cheap hosting for $3-5 a month and you can run your business website.
No, you can't.
It's going to run like a dog.
No, you're not going. You're going to hurt your business.
And Google's just going to look at it, and you're just not going to get any ranking. So when people say this and they won't listen, I give up. They're the type of people you can't talk to, and they just have to learn the hard way.
Yep. So on SiteGround, how many WordPress installs can you have?
That's the other thing. You can run as many sub-sites as you like.
That's good.
And the page views is over 100,000 unique visitors a month.
And I did see it has a cPanel.
Oh, yeah, it comes, and that's the see. I've utilised WP Engine, and they're great, and they've been great people, but they've got this custom design, and also they are really vicious about the plugins that they will allow you to run on their servers. There's a whole list of plugins they just won't allow you to run, and some of it is just gone a bit too far, in my opinion. But it's just my opinion.
Well, that's good and bad because, at least they're doing for the hobbyist or the person like myself who maybe not be the super expert, they're keeping me out of trouble by not using all of the plugins I could possibly put in.
Exactly.
So, and I'm not a hobbyist. I mean, this is part of my business. WordPress is, without WordPress, I couldn't run the business.
Right.
So, number 5, don't run plugins that you don't really need.
Yeah, I don't think it's quantity. You get some people, I think you can run 20, 30, 40 plugins on the site and you're fine. It's the quality of the coding. That list, it's a balance. So it's not quantity, it's quality that really matters. But on the other hand, so on my staging site, I try a plugin because it's easy, and then if I really think I need that functionality, I then go in and code that functionality into the live site. I just use the plugin as a kind of to show that I need that functionality on the staging site, and then I actually go in and actually do the PHP coding on the live site. So I'm just proving the concept on the staging site. So just don't go berserk with don't be afraid. You get these people, you mustn't put more than 11 plugins on your site. It's the quality that matters.
Right.
But on the other hand, if you've got a really doggy plugin, it can really slow your website down to crawl. So there's a tool, and funny enough, it comes from GoDaddy, and it's called P3 Plugin Performance Profile. And that really, really shows you if you've got a really dog plugin without you having to deselect, run the site. That can take a lot of time. This can give you a good indication. And it's quite amusing that it comes from GoDaddy. But the only thing I would say is it's better to run this actual plugin on your staging site because it's a bit of a resource hog in its own right. So I don't like running this particular plugin on a live site. I prefer to run it on a staging site and work out if there's a problem with a plugin before I put it on the live site.
And the staging site can just be another WordPress site that you use, right?
On a subdomain.
Or it doesn't have to be a subdomain, does it? I mean, if you have
you can put it in a folder, subfolder,
okay.
Yeah, you can do that.
Or how about if you just had another URL and you're pointing, if I had 2 websites, basically, a play around website?
Yeah, it's fine. It's just best to have it on the same server setup, the same hosting provider.
Right. Oh, I got it. That's like, I know what you mean. I'm just saying I can point to the DSN pointers to different sites. Yeah. So that's very good. One point about GoDaddy is they've actually made a lot of gains. They added a cPanel about 6 to 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And they're trying to go after this market,
very aggressively. I just don't like their support because it's mostly telephone based.
Yeah, I know some big companies in town that are actually using.
Yeah, no, but it's been mostly, and I've had some bad experiences with their email support, and I want email support. But with SiteGround, if you buy their better hosting packages, their email support is fantastic. Absolutely amazing email support.
Is it quick?
Oh, some of it you have to escalate to a more higher technician.
Right.
But most of their staff are pretty knowledgeable, but they just look after you so well, SiteGround.
And that's SiteGround, very good. Well, we're about a little past halfway through our show. We're about 17, 18 minutes.
Yep.
So we've got don't run the plugins you really don't need, and CDN and accessories. You're going to have to go in more detail on this, using content delivery network.
Yeah, basically, it's a server network that's external, and basically where you are in the world, there will be a time lag, and they take a copy of your site and they place it on servers that are all over the world. And when somebody comes to your site through DNS settings, they will send that person to the nearest server in their area, so you just can quicken the whole because these are microseconds, but these microseconds build up. Right. And some of these systems, some of these CDNs you have to pay for. SiteGround, WP Engine provide ones that you can set up through the interface of your hosting provider. Other ones you can do externally. Some of the one I've recommended, CloudFlare, do offer a free service, and you can set it up. And it's a little bit techy because you have to know about DNS and you have to do some settings, and it can cause some problems as well. So it might be better to do it through your hosting provider. Most hosting providers, depending on the level of account, will charge you extra per month for setting this up and running it for you.
Right. I have, I've gone to conferences where they talk about that, where the host, where the provider is providing that the CDN, and that's a good explanation you just gave.
Great.
But there's some providers that brag about having good CDN.
It's extra, it's extra. It will make things, there's security. Sometimes you have problems with certain websites. It will make things a little bit more complicated, and depending on the hosting level or account you got, you're probably going to be charged extra to running it. So I would try some of the other things first.
Yeah. I was just thinking the same thing, that on our list here, this might be one of the last things that you do.
Yeah.
This is like you just want that megasecond faster, which is going to be in some cases much faster if you get a good server close to you.
Yeah.
So optimizing your image, this is good.
Yeah, it's going back in history in a bit, but it's something that's been forgotten. But you've got to do it. Is that you've got to understand that a lot of people are going to use mobile devices to look at your website, and that they got bandwidth restrictions. They might be on G3, G4. And they want to see your website quick, your mobile version, and you've got to optimize your images. And images, unless you've got a very plain website, which has its place, you're going to have images, and you don't want to utilize the cropping tool in WordPress, because the reality is the size image that you upload into the library is the image that's going to be actually imported onto the page. So you want to make the images, when you're editing the images, you want to make them the actual real size that's going to be actually loaded on the page.
So if I have my site's already built and I've got 70 blog posts with podcasts in them and with pictures in each one. So I know you got WP Smush It. So how do we go back and optimize those pictures?
That looks at the JPEG compression algorithm and improves it. And
is it just a plugin? I just stick the plugin in and it automatically does it?
Yeah, to some extent. But what I'm saying is, you want to make the image the right size and don't use the cropping tool that's in the library, because that's a delusion. It's still loading the full size image. And you get a lot of people that don't understand this, utilize it. And
I crop all the time.
Oh, don't do that. You need external editing program.
So just edit ahead of time, 150 by 150, and then drop it in.
Well, if that's going to be the actual size, yeah.
I can easily do that. I didn't realize that's too simple. When you crop it to 150 pixel, you can still optimize it at 72 dpi too.
Well, it's got to be 72 because that's what it will be displayed on the web.
Right, but if you have it above that, it's just useless, right?
Well, it's just extra weight.
That's the real optimization. That's going to be a lot of work. I've got like 60 posts with pictures.
Well, yeah, but just make sure whatever size you want for your post, you do it that size. Don't use the cropping tool, because
I will in the future, but if I go back and fix my website.
Yeah, you've got a bit of work to do, Bill.
Jonathan, quick question. If I don't fix those old posts, what does it slow down the site as long as that page is not open?
No, it's we're talking about when it's loaded.
When it just loads, it's just the load itself. So from here on out, I really should just do a.
Well, you got a pretty, good-looking website, but it's not heavily image-based.
Right.
You need to do some testing. I don't think it's, unless you've got some speed problems, you probably don't have to bother, Bill.
We tested it, but in the future, I will crop those to 150. That's too easy.
But you really got to, understand having all I call it the bling. You get a lot of beginners that want to do these sites themselves, that they go for bling, they go for all sliders and this and that, rather than really good design, detailed design and decent layout. But bling means heavy websites. Heavy websites means penalties from Google.
Well, like I was saying, I think mail-right.com is, I've looked at a lot of your sites, and that's my favorite.
Oh, thanks.
I like how there's not a lot of moving, blinking things, good color, fast.
It's going to become faster. I've got a ton more work. It's going to be really. I'm aiming in Google's marking to get into the into over 90 on mobile and on desktop, but that's going to take a bit more work.
I just hit your price page, and it flashed. It's really fast.
It's coming on, isn't it?
The price page really flashed. This is news. This is the first. They're not cache loaded at all.
No,
it's fast. This is amazingly fast. Now, I just did the account, and it did the pull down, and then I love it. I think this, Jonathan, anybody who ever looks at a site, this is as good as they get. I really, 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 I'm not a big slider fan anymore. I just want to get to the information. And this is good. So, okay, we'll finish up. That was 7, so we finish up with speed test, and that'll put us right on time. Thanks for listening to WP-Tonic. Jonathan and I are making a pretty good team. He is the expert in WordPress, which I've learned a lot from him as I've evolved, and I'm doing the podcasting side of the house. We're really working on some neat things. We make a good team. Jonathan is just Skyping into me. He's got his new Blue Yeti, and he's doing pretty well. So this isn't bad for our first Skype shot between the two of us. We normally do it face-to-face. I have a remote field kit that we've put together. But all in all, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And again, I cut out Jonathan in the last couple minutes, so you didn't get to hear his comments. And I'll say goodbye for Jonathan. So have a good day. Tune in for our next episode, which will be all about security. And it will be out on the 1st. We're going to record it on the 1st and post it on the 1st.